Big 12 football media days here in Frisco, Texas. Day one is a wrap. Mitch Harper and Steve Bartle here with KSL Sports. A lot to unpack from maybe the league-wide perspective, and of course BYU, who took center stage among the local teams today. Utah will take day two. Let's start with the Big 12 though, Steve. Impressions and thoughts of what Commissioner Brett Yormark had to say in his State of the Conference address.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting listening to Yormark today. I don't want to say like there wasn't anything that popped, right? There wasn't that big thing maybe we've heard in the past, but it was interesting today him focus on the actual product on the field. He talked a lot about the football within the Big 12 conference, highlighting the quarterback play, highlighting the competition and the parity, which are things that he's talked about before. But I thought it was really interesting him talking about, the actual play and production. So that was interesting. But I think the thing, that we're all interested in, obviously the playoff format, the message continues to be the 5+11, and the fact that the Big 12 wants to earn it on the field, and that just continues to be the message and everything that they're doing. So, yeah.
As Brett Yormark said, they're doubling down on the college football playoff 5+11. They want to earn it on the field. And as he also pointed out, it might not be good for the Big 12 right now, because I think they understand where they sit in the Big 12 or the power conference structure. They're not one or two. They're chasing that third spot right now, and that'd be a great place to be. But after a year where you only get one team to the playoff in the 12-team iteration, they know that there's work to be done with the football product in this league. But long term, especially with the way that this league is committing financially, we're here with Joey McGuire walking around the Star. BYU, you're seeing these programs investing. Baylor, they once had T-shirts that says "We pay players." There's a lot of financial commitment in this league, even though that the media rights say, "Oh, you're second rate." They're saying, no, that's not the case. We're investing at a high level. We're going to be very competitive with the SEC and Big Ten.
Yeah, that was a big message today, was the optimism for the future of the conference because of the investment that programs are putting into football. And you're seeing it, on the recruiting trail right now, as you mentioned, bringing up Texas Tech, who just landed, one of the top offensive tackles this past weekend. BYU obviously landing Ryder Lyons. And you're seeing it more and more throughout the conference. They're getting these signature recruiting wins, and that's a product in large part of the investment that programs are putting into it. Obviously, with revenue sharing and that's going to be really interesting to dive more into that over tomorrow with some of the people we'll get to talk with, learning more about how programs are going about rev share and all of that. But I do think there's a lot of optimism and confidence even that because of the investments that programs are putting into the student athletes, there's a lot of optimism for the future of the Big 12.
And keep in mind, too, this is year one of a new media rights structure in the Big 12. So you got ESPN, Fox, TNT Sports. They're going to be the main ones broadcasting Big 12 football going forward and paying out, 31-something million per school each year through 2031. So 2 billion reasons why those networks need the Big 12 to be valuable. A lot of money is invested into this league. We'll also see how that shapes, windows, TV windows to get this league in a spotlight where it's actually being showcased. Because last year, the SEC, from the ESPN side of things, they were gobbling up all the marquee windows, right. Big Ten with Fox. Well, I'm very curious to see how that kind of forms. But Yormark has clearly formed great relationships with those TV executives. And, I think Yormark, he didn't have some splashy announcement. He didn't have some splashy tagline this year. But I think, to your point, it was a kind of business day. And I did find it interesting how he highlighted the QB stat. 9 quarterbacks in this league return that passed for over 2,400 yards a season ago. The rest of the Power 4, 11 combined. Great quarterbacks in this league in 2025. And it should make for an exciting year of Big 12 football. No preseason poll this year. Arizona State last year was picked 16th. Brett Yormark thought that hurt the Sun Devils. Do you think the preseason poll last year hurt teams like ASU and BYU and maybe Utah as well, who was picked number 1 last season?
Yeah, I think there's certainly from a public perception and in terms of who's voting, as we get into the season, that probably played a role in people doubting ASU and doubting BYU. But I do think at the same time, it's sort of a double-edged sword where, Kenny Dillingham, he's smart, he's savvy, he knows what he's doing. He's going to use that number 16 ranking as motivation, and I think all of it worked to ASU's favor. Not all of it in terms of their favor, but they used it properly in the right context to use it as motivation. But I do think that this is something that a lot of us have talked about over the years. That what's the point of preseason polls? Let's get into the season, getting 3 or 4 games to get a better idea of what this year is going to look like. I think that it's the move, and to see the Big 12 actually make it in removing that preseason poll, I think it's bold, and I think it's a good move.
And I think to follow up on that too, when you remove the top 25 in the preseason, you just highlight matchups. Think Auburn, Baylor, week 1. It's just Auburn, Baylor. That sounds awesome. Sign me up. I'm in, because of the logos on the field. But it removes this notion that, Baylor's not good compared to Auburn, or Auburn, vice versa. I feel like the preseason polls hurt this sport, and we got to stop looking at college football from what it was in the 1980s, the 1990s, the tradition, all that stuff. It's tradition in some respects. It's still part of the fabric of the sport, and we got to honor some of those rituals that come within these fan bases and programs. But to just say, because this program has been great from 2005 to 2020, we should give them the benefit of the doubt each year. No, this is a new era. Texas Tech injected millions into this roster. Why can't they be a top 10 team this year?
Yeah.
The way that they invested into the defensive line with David Bailey, and then the transfer from UCF, Lee Hunter, who's going to be, he's massive. So
he is big.
There's great talent on these teams. Yeah. And I think that the Big 12, if they can kind of get over that hurdle of this narrative that they are just a second-rate league, can really help their cause.
And, tying it all together, right, it all gets to the playoff and the format and the 5+11, right? And it is the importance of non-conference matchups, right? Yormark spent time highlighting the fact that Kansas State, Iowa State, that's going to be the first game that a lot of people watch this season. He then also said, next year it's going to be TCU in 2026 taking on North Carolina in Ireland as the first game that many people are going to watch. So I think Yormark clearly understands the importance of games and time frames and when to get eyeballs and that sort of thing. And it'll be interesting this season because there are a lot of interesting non-conference matchups, right? Utah, UCLA, Baylor, Auburn, all of those are going to be important. And for the Big 12, like Yormark said, you want to earn it on the field. First week, you're going to have an opportunity to do that in getting valuable non-conference wins.
Today, 8 teams spoke to the media, 8 of the 16. The other 8 will speak on day 2. One of those 8 teams, of course, was BYU. Jake Retzloff, one of the big storylines, I think, here at Big 12 Football Media Days for the entire league. Kalani Sitake asked a lot about Jake Retzloff. He just pointed to he's going to allow Jake to make his statement. We'll see when that comes from the quarterback of the Cougars, Jake Retzloff, who led BYU to an 11-2 season last year. But Kalani Sitake very optimistic about these quarterbacks that are going to contend for that job. He did note it's going to be a quarterback battle. And so there you go. McKay Hillstead, Trayson Bourget, Bear Bachmeyer. Those are the 3 guys to really watch. And then Emerson Geilman, a preferred walk-on, kind of late addition to the roster, comes in from the past winter from Bountiful High School. But, BYU has got some quarterbacks that they like, but it's very unproven, Steve, and that's where you kind of look at this team and think, I think BYU could be a title contender, but a lot of it rests on that quarterback position.
Yeah, for sure. And that's, again, when you talk about the Big 12 and Yormark talking today about the quarterbacks, there are a lot of good quarterbacks in this league. And, as we've learned over the last few years, the quarterback is so important in success, right? And so, there are a lot of, in talking to, some of these other teams and other programs, there's a lot of confidence in each of their own chances this season. I was talking with a Texas Tech beat writer, and he was talking about them they should start 6-0 to open the season. Talking to Iowa State, that they're optimistic that they're going to start strong. Yeah. And so there's a lot of confidence across the league, and it boils down to, what they bring back on the roster, what they have at quarterback, And so for BYU, obviously that's going to be tough. You lose that experience that you gained with Retzlaff last year. And so, tomorrow we'll get to talk to 8 more teams to get a better sense of what they're feeling. Obviously with Utah and David Dampier having that familiarity with the offense, the command there, that's going to be an interesting dynamic. And so it's super interesting and fascinating with all of the quarterback play, obviously with BYU being in the situation that they are.
BYU had 5 players here in Frisco, one of which, Keanu Tanavasa, crossing over rivalry lines from Utah to BYU. You know Keanu as well as anyone. You had a weekly guest on the Utah Blockcast on KSL Sports throughout last season. You got the chance to catch up with Keanu. I did as well, but your thoughts on that change, seeing it now both sides and seeing him here rocking the BYU jersey for the first time.
Weird.
It was the first time I've seen him in a BYU Royal Blue jersey as well. We saw him in the practice threads in spring. Just your thoughts on Keanu now being a BYU Cougar.
Yeah, he looks and sounds like a totally new man. He's recently married, and you can tell that that's something that he's excited about. And so, he's a confident young man, and he's got a lot of ambition, and he's worked hard to be where he is right now. And he's confident in what he's doing and what the Cougars are doing.
I think Keanu.
But it was weird. It was very. Sorry.
Oh yeah. No,
it was weird.
Absolutely.
Seeing him in a BYU uniform.
It was surreal.
So weird.
Like I saw him in spring practice, and that was surreal. Seeing him and Carson Ryan chopping it up.
Right.
And then to see Keanu in the Royal Blue threads, because some of the players, they had stations with like Fox and ESPN where they were doing the like that viral Darius Lasser. Darius, I could have helped you last year, but anyway, because did you ever see that?
No.
It was this viral clip from Big 12 Media Days in Vegas where every team was doing this, and then they said, wait for BYU, and then Darius goes, You didn't see that?
I don't watch BYU clips, Mitch.
Oh, it was a funny clip nonetheless. But they were around the stadium here, wearing their jerseys, and just see Keanu in the Royal Blue. It was like, this is happening. This is real.
Yep.
Keanu Tanavasa crossing rivalry lines. He did note in the breakout session, because he was kind of clearing the air about some comments on Radio Row about Utah. But he said, I love those people. Like, I love Utah. And it kind of reminded me of Kalani, because Kalani, when BYU fans want him to say, hey, just bag the Utes, just throw them under the bus, he's like, no, I'm not going to, because he has a deep respect for them, and he wants to be a kind person. I mean, obviously, they get behind closed doors. They want to win that game as bad as anyone coming up on October 18th. But massive addition for BYU. Him, Justin Kirkland from Oklahoma State, 2 Big 12 foes coming over to BYU. They're going to reshape, I think, BYU's interior, the defensive line. Tausili Akana, another Big 12 guy in the past from Texas, named to watch for at defensive end. Logan Latui comes back. Bodie Schoonover, I think he's going to look completely different physically. He's kind of taken on more of a body type like a Tyler Batty. Not as tall, but completely changes body. He's about 260 right now. He looks great. So I think BYU's defensive line is going to be much better. I think the defense at large for BYU, they have a chance to be the number 1 defense again, I think, in the Big 12. They were last year. Year 3 with Jay Hill, I think they feel even more confident. They got to shore some things up at cornerback, just to kind of tighten up who are going to be the guys. Maury Bamba looks to be the one that's going to be the top guy coming back. Trey Alexander's in the mix. They like the options, but they got to sort that out. And it starts, I think, July 29th, July 30th, somewhere in there. Fall camp will get kicked off, and that's 3 weeks away, Steve. So we're almost here to the football season, but it's been an eventful day here at Big 12 Media Days, day 1.
Eventful is a word.
Yes, it has.
Yeah.
Some different ebbs and flows to this workflow. Hey, another fun thing that was actually kind of interesting. Did you see the AI computer, station?
No, I didn't. I wanted to get there.
Microsoft Copilot, kind of cool. Me and Tanner Tripp, who's been helping us out with great video content throughout here on KSLSports.com. We went over and asked some questions. AI. It was a Big 12 assistant on Copilot. I'm like, I kind of need this. It gave a full schedule, the detailed schedule, where the teams go for the locker rooms all this time. So I'm like, okay, I need to jot this down. These robots know way more than we do. It was really cool. Then they had a stat about a BYU running back, single game. Tanner asked, single game record for most rushing touchdowns by a BYU running back. Tyler Algier, 5 in 2021. It didn't say the game. I fact checked it. I fact checked it on the fly. I was right. So the robots still can't.
All right.
I'm still keeping up with the robots a little bit.
A little bit.
AI playing a big role, I guess, here at Big 12 Media Days. We're playing a big role. KSL Sports, we got a full team coverage. KSL Sports Zone, KSL 5 TV, KSL News Radio, and KSLSports.com. Keep checking out all the content on the KSL Sports app, and like and subscribe to KSL Sports YouTube.